Okay, we continue. Industrial structure.
In considering industry status, we'd also like to spend some time talking about the industry structure itself. Specifically, what we mean by structure are the natures of the barriers to entry, the nature of the hurdles that a new company needs to go through to enter that given industry. It's also what is involved with the competitive dynamics in that industry. What level of capital intensity is there? What level of advertising intensity is there? What's the concentration of firms that are competing with that industry, as well as what's the average company size of your competitors? And so by digging in and studying each of these, you get a better sense of what's the landscape that you're going to be competing within. So with capital intensity, we're looking at money. We're looking at when you're thinking about industries and when you're thinking about business ideas, do you need a lot of money to get started? Or can you get started at a much more affordable rate? A second element to think about when you're looking at this element of structure is the advertising intensity. And that if you're able to enter a market where people are easily swayed, where people can be persuaded via advertising, then it's probably going to be better for you as the entrepreneur. Now, there are some brands that people are in love with. I will only drink this company's product. I will only wear this company's shoes. There's also a brand where people get them tattooed on them. People know that one?
Pepsi.
You get Pepsi tattooed on you?
Pepsi do it.
Really?
You get like free Pepsi for life?
Interesting. There's a different one I'm thinking about.
Harley Davidson.
Harley Davidson. So you have people that are these diehard Harley Davidson motorcycle fans, and they'll have the Harley Davidson logo tattooed on them. Now, if a customer likes you well enough to get you tattooed on them, you have achieved something. So in that way, again, we want to recognize what role advertising plays, and how easy is it to try and capture them or persuade them to you. Now, an awful lot of retail is walk-by traffic. You happen to be near something and you go in. There might be some brands that are a destination. I'm going to get in the car exclusively to go to this store. But that's a bit rare. So you want to think about what role advertising plays and what the relative costs are for that. Company concentration, you want to think about as far as how many competitors are there and what's the typical size of them. Again, we would rather compete with smaller competitors, preferably fewer competitors, but we would rather have many small than a few big. And in that way, competing with a few small competitors is more advantageous for us. Again, it's more of a level playing field for you. So what we see also sometimes is that there's trends emerging like app development. And so there are lots of companies that are trying to build apps, and their apps might be a hit. They might get them up on the App Store, they might sell in great volume, and they're going to have a lot of success, and they're going to hit a home run with that, or they might build lots and lots of apps just to have none of them really take off. Alternatively, there are companies like Artisan that are building tools for app developers, meaning that as there are people that are building apps, if I can bring you platforms that will help you in your design, that will help you in refining that user experience, that's a tool for the builder of the apps, I would argue they are likely going to have greater success as Artisan than the average app company. And I think the parallel to this are Gold Rush. What was the Gold Rush?
That was like in 1849.
Okay.
Gold was discovered in California.
Yep.
And many people went down there, but very few became rich. But the companies that made tools or jeans, like Levi, Strauss, became very rich.
Okay, so exactly right. So in the Gold Rush, when you could go to California and walk around and there's gold laying on the ground, where you could sweep the ground and you'd see gold. The thought was, well, everybody should go out there and we're going to strike it rich. And few people did. And I can't name one to my knowledge that did. But some did. But I know Levi's. I know Levi Strauss. What did people pan for gold in initially? What did you wear?
Jeans?
Didn't wear jeans. Not before Levi's. You wore your wool pants. Not a pleasant thought. Let me essentially wear a suit. Again, watch these westerns that are set in the early 1800s. People are dressed pretty nice. People are dressed in their coats and jackets and wool pants, and Levi's, with their commercialization of denim and jeans and overalls and such, again, kind of reinvented that industry. And it was Levi's, and it was the people that sold shovels and that sold axes and picks, that sold hotel rooms, that operated the restaurants, that made money in the gold rush. And then they let everybody else chase the gold and chase the end customer. So in that way, again, Artisan is doing something similar. And when we look at what they're doing, we'll take a couple
In
minutes.
today's world, mobile app is part of a successful business strategy. So let me ask you something. Are you getting the results you want from your app? Is it driving sales, deepening engagement, or increasing brand loyalty? It should be. And this is why you need to know about Artisan, the first mobile experience management platform that helps you get the results you're looking for. Our motto is simple. Apps are about the experience, and they should be as inspiring, intuitive, and engaging as the devices they run on. Chances are, if you aren't getting the experience right, you aren't getting the business results you want. This is why the app world needs Artisan, because without it, the ability for brands to engage with their customers and manage mobile experiences that actually improve their bottom line is quite the task. Even making simple changes can be incredibly tedious and time-consuming. From writing code to compiling and recompiling your app to waiting on App Store approvals and hoping users will download your updates, it takes a lot of time and resources. Artisan changes all of that by putting unprecedented control at your fingertips on an easy-to-use online platform that gives you near-instant insight into how your customers are using your app and the immediate knowledge of what's working and what's not. Truth is, with Artisan, you can make modifications, test different designs and messages, create personalized experiences, publish updates directly to your users, and analyze your app's effectiveness, all within minutes and all without coding. This means, among other things, you'll be able to make informed decisions based on facts, not hunches, which will lead to better customer experiences and more profitable results. That's remarkable. So if you're looking to wow your customers by crafting amazing mobile experiences, you're looking for Artisan. Bottom line, we'll help you maximize your return on mobile. So you might have gotten lost in some of the technical elements if you're not a developer, but it certainly sounds good. It certainly sounds like, as a tool for developers, it's going to add value to what you're doing. And so they're having some success with this, and again, it's geared much towards
the logic of let's build a tool. This is one of the most successful Kickstarter campaigns, which is a crowdfunding platform, and we'll talk about what crowdfunding is, where entrepreneurs went in with a design, and they set out with a goal of raising $100,000 through pre-sales. So not via investors, but from people that would buy the product, would pay them for this product now, and that would come with a promise of them sending you the product once it was built a few months from now. So with this element of pre-sales, you are paying now, typically at a discounted price, if you're willing to wait a period of time, a few months, to get your product. So they had a goal of raising $100,000 for this. They raised $1 million in 28 hours, and $10 million today. And this launched a year ago, May of 2012. So we'll take a brief look at what they're doing.
Hi Kickstarter, my name is Eric. This is my smartphone, and this is my Pebble. Pebble is a watch that you can customize. It runs a lot of cool and useful apps, and connects wirelessly by Bluetooth to your iPhone or Android smartphone. This is our dream team. It started with a prototype built from cell phone parts. That led us to our first commercial product, the Impulse smartwatch for BlackBerry. The number one question we received was, when will the watch work with my iPhone? Well, we're proud to say that we can finally answer that question. This is Pebble. It's the only watch that works perfectly with iPhone and Android smartphones. Pebble is much smaller and lighter than anything else out there. It has a high-resolution e-paper display that looks sharp and readable even outside under direct sunlight. Pebble comes in several different colors: Arctic white, jet black, cherry red, and a fourth color that you could vote on as a backer of the color option. We're really excited about how you can run apps on Pebble. If you cycle, you can use Pebble as a bike computer. The GPS on your phone provides accurate data, letting you view stats like average speed, elapsed time, and distance traveled. If you run with your smartphone, you can use Pebble to easily control your music and monitor your pace and distance. You can even see extraordinarily important messages right on your wrist. It's easy to install new apps on your Pebble. Just browse the Watch App Store on your phone and click Install. Around the house, Pebble makes it easy to see who's calling while your hands are full. You can also control most smartphone music apps like iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, Google Music, and more right from your wrist. These apps are just the start. For the more adventurous, we're launching an open SDK so anyone can build apps for Pebble. These apps can receive data and transmit data to the internet. Pebble has a built-in accelerometer, a vibrating motor, powerful microprocessor, Bluetooth, and a beautiful e-paper display. The battery keeps Pebble running for over 7 days. So that's Pebble. We finished the design, and we're just about to start production. But we need help to get Pebble onto your wrist. We hope you'll join us. Thanks.
So what they've done, and the nature of this, and with these platforms like Kickstarter, you can buy this for $100.
Is it out yet? Yeah.
And you get one watch for $100, and they plan to retail it for $150 in exchange for you giving them the money now, and again, waiting from March until September, so waiting about 6 months for it. You get a $50 discount. What they've also done is had a couple of other options, and with this one, it looks like they sold that, and then they may have added some more later, and they sold 40,000 watches at this $115 price point. And so they have all these different levels of what type you can buy and how many you can buy and how many colors. And if you would like 100 of them, they will sell you 100 of them in a mix of colors. Who would need 100 watches? A distributor or a retailer that wants to put this in their store and sell them. So in that way, watches have been around a long time. I'm not familiar with too many watches that do what this one does. Fundamentally, it's extending the display of your iPhone to your watch or your wrist. So it doesn't necessarily have every feature and function embedded in the watch. It just adds a second screen to use the software and the features that you already have on your phone. So pretty novel, pretty interesting, as evidenced by the success they've had with it. But again, they recognize that the world probably doesn't need another watch company that runs like normal watches do, but there's an opportunity to do something different. And there's not anybody in the market, to my knowledge, that does exactly this. There's Nike that does some stuff, there are others that do some stuff, but again, a pretty novel offering.
How do they get like your messages on the actual?
I can't answer the technical questions of it, but they figured out a way to do it. Yep.
So this was, the funding period was only a month, and they made $10 million.
The funding period, they opened it in May 17th is when it opened, and it looks like they stopped taking sales. Actually, let me back up. It looks like it started April 11th, and so they hit their goal that day. So they hit that $100,000 goal that day, but they continued with it, and it ran until mid-May, and they did $10 million in sales during that window, as I understand what they have here.
How does Kickstarter make money off this?
Kickstarter makes a percent, so I think it's about 6%. So in that way, they make a percentage of sales. And when we look at this crowdfunding market, so now we're kind of going beyond that specific product, and we're looking at the broader crowdfunding industry, we see that based on this chart, there are an increasing and rapidly increasing rate of growth of models like this, where some people are buying product, meaning that I'm going to prepay for product. There are other people that are doing equity. I'm buying into a company based on a website, and I'm putting in a couple $100, a couple of $1,000. There are lending platforms. There are donation-based platforms. There are microloan and microlending platforms. So there's a lot of things going on in this crowdfunding space, and people buy in on it because they either like the product, they want to buy it, they believe in it, they want to put some money in, get the product at a discount, probably be the first person they know that has that product, but they're going to have to wait a little while. And again, that's where in some fashion these tangible pieces come in, where you're not investing in Pebble, you're not lending money to Pebble, you're buying the product with Kickstarter and the campaign that they ran. And so in that way, again, we see a lot of things emerging, and we see the industry changing quite a bit just in a couple of years of what's this dynamic. But what we also want to recognize is that when you go through and you think about this, there are companies that are building software for people that want to start crowdfunding websites. So let me say it a different way. So there is Kickstarter, which is a company where you and I, if we have a product idea, or we want to make a movie, or we want to write a comic book, or whatever it is that we want to do, we can go to Kickstarter, we can post our project, and try and get people to buy via pre-sales or just contribute money to it. Different than Kickstarter, there are other platforms out there that try and match entrepreneurs with people that are prospective buyers or donors. This company has what's called a white label solution, which is kind of a template of features and functions that you can use if you want to start a crowdfunding site for a specific purpose or audience. And an example of one of their customers is the University of Vermont, and that's their platform that they've highlighted here. What do you think the University of Vermont is doing with a crowdfunded solution like this? How are they using the launched product?
So that other students can fund their fellow students?
They very likely may be trying to market something to the student community, whereby student entrepreneurs can sell to other students and do it in this kind of pre-sales fashion, where you have an idea, you need some money to make the idea happen. People want the product, but they can't buy it until it's made, which you can't do until you have the money. So it gets to be a chicken and egg problem historically, but here this is a novel way of solving it, where people are going to pay you first, you'll use that to make it, and then you'll give them what it is they bought with a bit of a time delay.
Let's say the watch company, I forget the name.
Yep.
They only got, or Pebble, they only got like, let's say 10 sales or something. And
Yep.
they had a goal.
Yep.
Does the money go back to the person who put it in? If they
Yes, so a lot of these crowdfunding platforms, and again, if you are the builder of a platform, you can decide what the rules are. But typically, if you tell me you need $100,000 to make your product, and you raise $99,000, then your product is unfunded. You get no money, and all that money goes back to the people that pledged the money initially. So in that way, again, if it's going to cost you $500 to buy an airline ticket to get somewhere, and you only have $499, you can't get there. So that's the same logic they use, in that you tell them what you think it's going to cost, and you either raise it or you don't, and it's an all or nothing solution. But what we see here, again, with these crowdfunding platforms is they are emerging and emerging rapidly. And again, a novel space. Kickstarter is big, and there are another one or two that are big, but they're a little bit non-specific. What's the problem with putting your ideas up for sale before you have the product?
someone would steal it, maybe.
Someone may steal it. And there are some companies that report that happening. And there are some individuals and or companies that report to search Kickstarter for good ideas that they want to copy. So is that good or bad for Kickstarter? Pretty bad if people think that, well, I may put something up, but it's probable that somebody might be able to copy my idea, and if they have some money, get it to market before I can. What's the advantage of doing something that's going to be University of Vermont centric? By those students, for those students, in a contained environment. Yep.
People probably won't take your idea, and you'll know they are.
It might be a little bit more of a controlled environment. It might be more of a trusted environment. The likelihood that other students are going to have a ton of money and a ton of existing relationships that they're going to be able to execute on that idea well and quick and before you is low. And so in that way, again, there are other advantages to making it local. What else is interesting about having something that's a very local model for being able to raise funding? What happens when your school does a fundraiser? Who gives you money?
People.
People that live near you or that are otherwise affiliated with the school. So in that way, too, by having something that's kind of a local or a specialized platform, you may be able to more effectively raise money. And again, it's more of a trusted type environment. So in summary, when we think broadly about industries, it really comes down to two fundamental questions. Is the industry at the right stage? Is the life cycle right for you to enter as a startup? Or if you are entering something that maybe is a bit too mature, what are you going to do to be sustainably competitive against bigger firms that are already within that space? The second piece is understanding structure, and it's understanding what types of structures are favorable to startups. And it's rare that you're going to find the perfect industry that's favorable by all measures, but it gives you some sense of the things to consider, the things that to be aware of. There's also the things that you're going to have to compete within and what to expect as you enter an industry. Is your advantage superior and sustainable? By advantage, we're going to turn our attention to competitive advantage, and that's the third element that we're going to be examining within our opportunity identification discussion. So building competitive advantage really begins with thinking about customer validation and having a customer validated perspective on the problem and your planned solution. It gives you a target for where to invest the time and resources to build that venture. And it helps you to really think about how to be competitive, which requires consideration of two elements, the degree of your advantage and the sustainability of that advantage. So by degree, what we're discussing here are there better features, and not a little better, but a lot better features that you can bring to the market? Are there things that aren't necessarily more in number? If a competitor has 5 features, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need those 5 plus 5 more. It means that you need perhaps the right 5, the right 7. per our discussion on value innovation, maybe there are one or two things out there that customers don't really value, that you can remove those and reinvest those resources into doing a few new things or amplifying some existing things that really do matter to customers. But we want to be better, and we want to be a lot better. We may be able to be cheaper. We may be able to derive value in the marketplace by offering a similar product to what's out there, maybe the exact same product in many ways, but we have some secret sauce, some new approach that makes our offering cheaper. And not just cheaper so competitors can lower prices, and then we lower prices, and then they lower prices, and then we go out of business if they're bigger than us and we can't compete that way. But what we mean by lower prices, and substantially lower prices, in a sustainable way, is there's something different about our operations. So in this case, think of something like your movie experience, your home movie experience, what you were doing in a DVD movie rental market a few years ago. Many of us went to Blockbuster or our local video rental place, chose our movie, paid for our movie, left, went home, came back a day or two later, and returned that movie. Well, we haven't done that lately with Blockbuster since they've gone out of business. But what really came along that most of us went to was a company called Netflix. And you may know Netflix now as a streaming service. You may know Netflix now as an internet-based service. But in its beginning, it was mail order. And for our older students, you may remember the mail order version of Netflix that was the original. And what that allowed us to do was to go online, choose the same movies that we may have chosen from that Blockbuster, but they would come to us via the mail. And sure, we may have to wait a few days for that to arrive, but they were cheaper, and they were always in stock, more or less. And few of us had to watch the movie that day. So the fact that we had to wait a couple of days, you could argue was worse than the Blockbuster experience. But for many of us, we would rather wait a few days on mail order than go to the store, maybe the movie was in, maybe it wasn't, watch it, and then travel back to the store and return it. We would rather wait, and we would perceive waiting as being worth it for the time and or money that we saved. So what we see with that is that Blockbuster eventually came into trying to do some things with mail order and trying to do some things online, but one, they were a bit late to the party at that point, and two, they still bore the expense of the face-to-face bricks and mortar operations that they were still running. So sure, they could try and copy a Netflix or copy a Redbox and do the vending machine model, but that did not necessarily replace all of the expenses that they were already incurring, and that based on multi-year lease agreements they may have already been on the hook for, even if they wanted to close the stores. So what we see with that is where there is opportunity to bring a degree of improvement by lowering price, and if it's accompanied by some operational advantages, or supply chain advantages, or manufacturing advantages, that's where you can add real value. You may also add real value in the marketplace and have a significant degree of advantage if you can be rare, meaning that you can bring something to the market that competitors either can't do or they can't reasonably do the way that you do it. We also want to talk about the sustainability of your advantage. With sustainability, what we're talking about here is how difficult is it for somebody to copy what you're doing? What's the likelihood of that? How easily can a competitor come along and observe what you're doing, learn from you, see your success in the marketplace, and decide that they want to apply their resources or their know-how or their relationships to try and replicate your success? Or maybe it's that next startup. It's that startup that came after Netflix that saw their success that tried to replicate what they were doing. Well, in that context, you want to think about, as you enter the market, are there things that you can do to make your product difficult to copy? Now, maybe it's the intellectual property, maybe it's the patents and things like that you can develop, or it may be building that strong brand that resonates, that really takes hold in the marketplace. It may be relationships that you can develop. It may be exclusivity agreements that you can sign with people that are selling your product or supplying you with parts of that product. There are a variety of different ways that you can work to build some entry barriers that make it difficult for those to come later and compete against you. We also want to think about sources of competitive advantage. There's degree and there's sustainability, and then the application of that is in some way influenced by how we're going to derive that advantage in the first place. One is specialization. What we see with specialization is an opportunity to be not like everyone else. So I see a lot of students today with concepts around subscription boxes. So what I mean by that, if you're familiar with NatureBox, if you're familiar with the Dollar Shave Club, these are models by which you as an individual will go online, you'll pay a fixed fee per month, maybe $20, maybe $40 per month, and you get an automatic mailing, typically monthly, with a box of product that you have signed up for. You subscribe to that product. What it means for the individuals that are providing that product is it's a great revenue model that if they can get a customer to check the box once and enter their credit card number, they know that every month until that customer cancels, they're going to have new product that they can expect. They're going to have new revenues they're going to generate each and every month forever for every customer that comes on board. They can either build original product, kind of being able to forecast demand. They can either make agreements with their suppliers based on having this demand. They can develop a number of distribution agreements to bring products in. And we see this not only in food and shaving, but we see it in cosmetics. We see it in apparel. We see it in wine. We see it in educational products and craft products for kids. A recent article that I read, well, I thought there were perhaps 100 box companies out there. Instead, informed me that there were almost 600 subscription box companies that are out there. So when I see a student comes along that wants to do the 601st company that does this, it doesn't really excite me. It's not something I necessarily see great opportunity to build a competitive advantage. What does excite me is a company called CrateJoy. CrateJoy does not compete to try and be 601 in the subscription box market. CrateJoy is one of the few companies that has made the choice of let's build the tool, let's build the platform, let's build the picks and the shovels that the gold miners need. So in that context, what CrateJoy does is they started a subscription e-commerce enabling business. They started a software company in the summer of 2013 that allowed individuals that want to be the subscription company, that want to be the provider of that subscription service, to use their software and use their platform to build out their site, to manage their inventory, to take care of their payments, and have a fully integrated service for a monthly fee that all the 600 companies that are out there and all the many hundreds to come can use as their preferred software provider for the tool. That's something that makes a lot of sense to me. It started with two individuals, both with some technology expertise. They applied and were accepted in the Y Combinator in Austin, so they went into a summer program to really build out the concept. And approximately a year later, they raised $4 million in venture capital in September of 2014 to continue to build and scale and market that business. Again, not trying to be 601, but trying to specialize, trying to do something that they saw an opportunity for that really wasn't being done well yet. Localization is another opportunity to be competitively different and to build that competitive advantage. We see this in some cases in international markets where there's a domestic product that's doing well, and the example here would be Spotify in the US, that's serving up music. An all-you-can-eat model is fixed dollar value you pay per month, and you can stream music and download music and things of that nature for a fixed fee. Well, what we've seen abroad in Taiwan is a competitor in KKBox that has differentiated from Spotify. They may have a lot of the popular music that Spotify has, but they further differentiated that by trying to sign local music labels and entering some agreements and some exclusivity agreements that provide this company unique access and a unique stock, a unique catalog of content and music for their local market to be able to anticipate, to be able to provide, to be able to serve individuals in their home country in a bigger and better way than a Spotify could. So in that context, it's specialization to an extent, but even more so, it's a localization strategy. A third source of competitive advantage is the team itself. Now, if you're already successful, if you're a Google, if you're a Microsoft, you can already recruit great talent and great executives. But what I'm talking about here is as the startup, as you're looking for your co-founders, as you're looking for your first or second employee, look for great people. Look for people that are excellent at what they do. And what you can expect is a greater likelihood of having excellent products and an excellent company if you start with an excellent team. So if I were to start an automotive company, an electric automotive company, I'd like to start with a CTO, a chief technologist, that had done great things before, that had built and scaled electric aircraft platform companies before, that understands electrics, that understands aerodynamics, and understands how to build a competent technology team. I'd like a chief financial officer that knows numbers, that understands money, that understands the automotive industry, that had been the CFO of Ford of Southern Africa, which is a $3 billion operation in and of itself. I'd like a chief designer that knows design, that has won countless awards, that has demonstrated they can design great product that people will buy in automotives. Perhaps a past director of design from Mazda's North American Design Center, one of the global centers of excellence for automotive design. Somebody that has design experience with General Motors and with Volkswagen. I'd like somebody that can build cars. I'd like somebody that has been a past production lead with Lexus, Toyota, Volvo, Renault. Someone that knows how to build 350 cars per year. I'd like somebody that understands how to buy things. Someone that understands supply chain. Somebody that was the chief purchasing officer for Sony Ericsson that can operate at a global scale. And I want my company to be fun. I want my company to be somewhere that individuals can come and enjoy what they do, and enjoy their work, and enjoy the company culture that we can build. And what better place to recruit such a person than somebody that was the director of staffing operations for Google that was responsible for growing them from their early days up into 2009, where they had tens of thousands of employees. So Tesla doesn't only build great cars, they build great teams. And they build a great team in the beginning that enabled them and improved their success of building great cars in a great company. So in summary, we want to think about competitive advantage by two facets: the degree of the sustainability. Can we do something that is a lot better, or a lot cheaper, or a lot rarer than what's out there? Can we build something that's sustainable, that's difficult to copy? And can we find sources of advantage, either independently or in combination, such as specialization, localization, building a great team, or other factors that are going to enable us to have success with our venture and enable us to tee ourselves up where we can be sustainably advantageous with a significant degree of advantage when we introduce ourselves into the market.
Okay, we continue later. Thank you.